Folks, let's get one thing straight. I am not going to apologize for the way I do my reviews. I'm a critic. That's what we do. I have my own opinions. You can listen to it. You can ignore it. It's totally up to you. I am trying to improve myself, my reviewing abilities, but I will always have my own opinion. I will also try to give you reasons as to, and I believe I succeed with this, as to why I didn't like it, and even if I didn't like it, why I did. As far as Flickster goes, I realize that Rotten Tomatoes has 2 ratings. You can either do it fresh or rotten. Consider a 7 or above a fresh in my book, and a 6 or below a rotten. But you're not here to hear me go on like that. I just want to continue to clarify as CinematicCritic, the second generation, as I bring forth my new personality, give myself an identity. And maybe this will help. CinematicCritic, fresh off from seeing Shaun the Sheep, the movie. Okay, so if you don't know Shaun the Sheep, which I'm actually one of the people who doesn't remember all that much about Shaun the Sheep, I think it was a TV series where Shaun the Sheep constantly tries to do things around the farm under the watchful eyes of this dog. I should know the dog's name. I'm not going to bother with that, though. Basically, all this time, and you've got the farmer. Now, this movie, if I am correct about that, then this movie is probably a lot different than the television series was, or I don't remember. I never saw any of that. So I will be judging this based on the merits of the movie, not so much as on the original television show. Especially since there really was none of that. That said, there was a little bit of that in the first few minutes of the movie. So it basically tells the story of a farmer. In the first minute or two, we see as the farmer grows up, he starts losing interest in farming, or not losing interest, he just gets tired of it, we'll say. The same old every day. We get this time montage over about a period of a week where the farmer is getting more tired every day, and where the sheep, including of course Shaun, and even the dog, are getting sick of the same old, same old. Then Shaun sees a big sign on a bus that says, "Take a day off." And he's like, yes, that's what I want to do. One thing before I move on, though, with this story, is that I was amazed. I'll tell you right now, I'm probably going to be rating this thing a 9. Don't hold me to that. I'll give the final rating at the end of the video, but I will tell you that this is definitely something that I would recommend, especially if you were a fan of other Aardman pieces. I thought Wallace and Gromit was pretty good. The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. It actually had a decent story to it. Probably would have been a 7 and an 8. 7 or an 8. This one is probably a 9. As I said, we'll discuss that. But I think that this movie does something. And yes, I am going to refer to my own script again. Because honestly, that's another reason why I go see movies. Why I'm starting to see movies again. I'm seeing, what do these movies do that makes them so successful? And I think one of the things that this did that I definitely have to work on in my script is that, well, description. The way that the movie plays out, this movie is done with no dialogue. Now, there are words, but they are only sung in songs, and you can't really count the songs as dialogue. The characters themselves are the characters who have dialogue, and there is no dialogue in this. Everything is said. Everything that needs to be communicated to the audience is on signs or happens in some sort of action, or just the facial just the faces of the characters could convey. Like, they're surprised, they could be, huh? And there are no words, or the way that the fake words are being said can also kind of get this across. So anyway, we've got Act 1, which was honestly a little fast for me, and that's why ultimately this thing won't be getting a 10 or 11, because I think that the setup could have used a little more. Now, that said, this definitely had a good length Act 2 and a good length Act 3. It definitely had what happens when they go to the city, and it was funny. There were plenty of funny moments. The adults were laughing, the kids were laughing. It kept my attention the whole time. I was like, oh, it was good. See, something that grabs your attention, keeps your attention, that is a movie that I want to see. And Shaun the Sheep certainly did that. So anyway, Shaun decides he wants a break. Hold with me for just 1 minute. I just want to see if it does mention the dog's name. So actually there were some voice actors in here. I'm not going to talk much about them, seeing as, well, there was no dialogue. We got Justin Fletcher as Shaun. Okay, again, no dialogue. John Sparks as the farmer. No dialogue. Omid Dajili as Trumper. And we'll get to Trumper when Act 2 starts. We got Shirley, we got Timmy's mom. These are all Slip, Nuts, the twins, Hazel. These are all sheep. Celebrity, Maitre D, Junior Doctor. Look at all these. One of these must have been the dog, and I just don't know which one. But anyway, we're just because I could not find the character's name, and I don't want this review to go on for too long, I'm just going to refer to him as the dog. I'm going to refer to the sheep as the sheep, and the only characters I'm going to refer to by name are Shaun and the farmer. So basically, Shaun decides to trap the farmer in this trailer, and I don't remember how they do it exactly. Something about I think they do knock him out, actually. And they put him in this trailer, and they start going in the house and taking a break, watching TV. They don't want to have their duties for that day, their chores for that day, the responsibilities, so to speak, to happen, and so they take a break. Unfortunately, this scene is very short. And as I said, that very short Act 1. So almost immediately something goes wrong, and of course we've got the runaway trailer. Now this is a predictable movie, but in this case it's good. You want the things that are supposed to happen, and it did. So we've got the runaway trailer, which goes into the city. Now the way the previews make this look, I thought that the farmer was going to be the one who decided he wanted a day off, and that Shaun the Sheep would have to go convince him to come back. But it's actually totally accidental. So let's get into Act 2. That's right, Act 1 is done already. In Act 2, we are introduced to the villain, which really should have been the end of Act 1, but and that will be Trumper, the animal control officer. Basically, we've got, in Act 2, a whole bunch of funny sequences where they're trying to find the farmer. The farmer wakes up in a hospital and realizes he has memory loss. So it's not just him being lost in the city or him going there because he needs a break. He's got memory loss, and now he needs Shaun the Sheep. He really needs Shaun the Sheep to come save him. So that was actually a legitimate setup, and I was like, okay, this movie's going somewhere. The first act concerned me in how short it was, but the second act definitely contained some things you would expect in the first act, but they were gone over quickly, and it was a good length, like I said. So we've got all these funny scenarios. We've got Trumper, our animal control agent, trying to capture the sheep. we've got a couple of other important characters, like this female dog who's kind of a mutt. She's got funny teeth. We'll get to that at the end. But anyway, we move on. Trumper catches Shaun, and Shaun finds out that the dog has been captured as well, and the dog is actually the first to find the farmer. When he does find the farmer, he can't get into the hospital because he's a dog, and someone actually comes out and to communicate. Like, here's a great way to communicate with us. The that dogs are not allowed. They don't say, "Hey, no dogs." The doctor comes out and points to a sign, and I saw the sign before it happens. Before he goes in, I see the no dog sign as the dog starts walking in, and then sure enough, for anyone who didn't catch that, the doctor comes out and he points to a sign that says, no dogs. On the way that the trailer is rolling toward the big city, he goes by a sign that's pointing in the direction of the trailer that says big city. I mean, they're making it obvious what's going on through these actions, and they have to because there's no dialogue, which is actually good. Anyway, so he gets caught by animal control. I guess they don't actually show it. But anyway, when Shaun is put in animal control, when he's put in the kennel, if you will, with other dogs, there's a fish there, a cat, and they're all funny because they all have got like these bad attitude. I was gonna say it's a kids movie, so they've all got this like I'm too cool attitude, and then a family shows up to adopt, and they're gonna adopt someone, and they're gonna adopt one of the animals, and all those I'm all too cool attitudes turn into I'm so cute, adopt me attitudes. I forgot which one of the ones they ended up adopting some lizard that wasn't even shown at first, and the lizard's like, I win, to all the rest of the animals. So we've got Shaun and we've got the dog in the same cell. They, of course, the other sheep come and break them out. And then Trumper is like, oh no. And of course, he doesn't actually say this. He's like, oh, you're not getting away from me. And he brings out, he's got this gun type thing with a hook on the end to capture animals. So he brings out a bigger one of those, which is electrocuted. Not electrocuted, electric. It's electric, okay? It's got settings 1, 2, 3, and skull bones. Skull and crossbones. Now, this being a cartoon and a kid's movie, skull and crossbones does not mean death. Let's just be clear. Either that or it does, and when he's shot with it, because he's a human, he survives. I think it just means danger. High voltage. We'll go with that, because this is a kid's movie. So anyway, that's about the time that Act 2 comes to an end. What it actually comes to an end with Shaun and the dog finally finding him, and the farmer has basically, with his memory loss, he has gone and he has tried to figure out who he was, and he actually remembers earlier in the couple of first minutes of the film, he starts shaving sheep, and when he remembers that one part of that one memory, him shaving, he doesn't remember the sheep, he just remembers him shaving. He sees this barber shop. He goes in and he just takes over one of the clients and shaves the head, and everyone in there is all like worried, but the client actually says, I love this, and he actually becomes a big star in the barber industry. So when Shaun, and keeping in mind that he still has his memory loss, but he's starting to think he might be a barber. Could have been a little better, but still very good. So Shaun and the dog find him, and they try to convince him to come back with it. Or Shaun goes in there, and the farmer takes one look at him and shoo, 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 shoo. Yeah, he shoos him away. He doesn't say shoo, and he might as well have, the way that he's doing this with his hands, and he's like, Like, he's clearly a silent shoe, even though he's not actually saying it. And the movie did a very good job of communicating what the characters were saying without actually having them say it, which I am pleasantly surprised by. I mean, Wallace and Gromit didn't do that. They had actual dialogue. Chicken Run had actual dialogue, and honestly, I think Chicken Run could have been better if they had conked out the dialogue. If they had actually decided to do something more along the lines of this Shaun the Sheep movie. I mean, the other thing to talk about is, I'm not going to go into all the technicals. I don't know how much of this was done with claymation, stop motion, and or how much was digital. But however it was presented, the characters definitely looked good. The backgrounds looked good. It all looked digitized, and that's very good. So even though it does have the claymation style, it all came together, it all pulled together somehow. Now, Act 3 is kind of fast as well, but it's not nearly as fast as Act 1, and the fact is that with an Act 2 that good, the fact that it's fast is okay. It is. Sometimes a fast Act 3 is worth it. Sometimes you don't need that much in Act 3. I know my own film would have a pretty quick Act 3, where everything comes together. All it really has to hold is the descendant action and the resolution, and Act 3 definitely does that. So where does this climax? The climax is, of course, let's talk about the exposition. We've got the exposition, which was all Act 1. We've got the rise in action, which is they have to go find the farmer. We've got the climax, they find the farmer, and he doesn't remember them. We've got the fall in action, which is they have to get him back to this farm, and then we've got the resolution, which is, well, we'll get to it. So anyway, we just hit the climax. All the sheep are like, we miss the farmer. And again, it's communicated wonderfully without any dialogue whatsoever in this song that is constantly played throughout the movie. One that's so addictive that I may actually have to get some of the songs that are in this movie if they are available for download, whether it's from their own album or from the Shaun the Sheep album, if they are available, because some of these songs are actually really catchy. I don't remember them after hearing them once, but I bet that if I put them on my iPod and listen to it a couple of times, I would definitely love them. And the music definitely does pull this together. I think if this had all been silent, that it would not have worked as well with the lack of music in this, because the music does perfectly complement what's going on with the movie, with the exception of maybe one song which I think could have been a little better lyrics, the one right after the climax. But anyway, and I'm not talking about the one where they remember everything about the farmer. I'm talking about the one after that. So anyway, the farmer hears all these sheep singing this song, or humming their song, or rather Shaun starts playing it on a cassette player he gave them, and the tape gets all messed up, and so he starts singing it to the baby who starts crying because they're not with the farmer, and now everyone's singing it. The dog's singing it, Shaun's singing it, the rest of the sheep are singing it, and the farmer overhears this from where he is in the... It's a long distance, but it's a cartoon. They can stretch it a little bit. He can hear them, and he's like, am I doing the right thing here? And the answer, of course, no. And then by some off chance, and the fact that this happens, it is a little convenient, which is, they should have figured it out in some other way. But conveniently, this paper from the hospital that's been floating around comes to the possession of Shaun, and just as he's about to burn it, the dog realizes, wait a minute, I smell the farmer's scent on that, and he opens it up, and it is his diagnosis, which says memory loss. And it's like, oh, so that's why he didn't recognize, that's why he pushed us away, because he didn't recognize us, he doesn't know who we are. And Shaun comes up with a new plan, And I do remember that the TV series had Shaun coming up with a lot of plans. I don't remember what they were for exactly. I think they were to have fun while the farmer was away. But again, that's me guessing. I didn't see that much about the series. But Shaun comes up with a plan to get the farmer back to the farm. And there he will remember everything. So where's Trumper in all this? Well, Trumper is getting ready for the final chase. They actually managed to, again, kind of knock out the farmer, and they have this giant horse that they build out of like paper mache and everything, and they sit, and it's operated by them. It's kind of a nod to the giant bird that the chickens built in Chicken Run, except it's a horse instead of a plane. It's a horse. It wasn't a bird that they built. It was a plane. My bad. Trumper comes up to them, Trumper comes up to this horse, and they've got the farmer dressed up in like a police helmet and everything to try to disguise him, and basically asks, "Have you seen the sheep, this dog, and this other dog that was helping them throughout the film? One of the bad teeth I mentioned, and we'll get to that at the end." And he's like, no, I haven't. And of course, the sheep are actually manipulating him to do that, because this whole time he's snoring, this whole time he's asleep. And then, unfortunately, he sees a little bit of fur. He sees some fur drop out of the horse, and he's like, no, there you are. And we get this funny, pretty neat action sequence, and yes, we are in Act 3 now, where he's chasing them back all the way toward the farm. They get back to the farm rather quickly, and you would think that it ends at the farm, but that would be a little fast. And I was thinking, you can't end it just yet, can you? I mean, I get it. You've got back to the farm. All you have to do is set him up. But can we have one last thing? And we get that one last thing. The Trumper, the agent, actually comes to the farm, and he's like, "Oh, no. He becomes, if I may, like Madame Dubois in Madagascar 3. 3? Yeah, 3. In Madagascar 3, he becomes like him. He becomes like her, where he'll do anything just to capture or kill Shaun the sheep. You know, they won't come out and say or kill, but he'll do anything to capture them. I mean, he's gonna push them off the cliff at one point, and that's exactly what ends up happening. He ends up grabbing them. He ends up trying to capture them. He ends up getting on this tractor, and it has like a giant claw on it. So he's gone from big to bigger to giant claw on a tractor, and he starts pushing this shed that the sheep hide in, along with the dog, and that other dog from the city, and the farmer, who is still asleep. Anyway, as they're starting to push him over, the farmer wakes up and he's like, what are all these sheep doing around me? And then he sees himself in the reflection, and the sheep all up against him because they're scared, and he realizes that his reflection, it reminds him of a photo taken earlier in the movie with him and all his sheep and how happy he was, and then his memory comes flooding back. And then we get this, it's short, but we get a couple minutes of battle of the bad guy, of Trumper trying to push them off the cliff, but Shaun the sheep ultimately being thrown out of the somehow getting out of the shed and managing to get Trumper off the tractor, and a couple funny moments where Shaun tries to operate the tractor, almost sends them over, but in the end does manage to pull him back. And then again we get one final moment where it's Shaun and Trumper, and at the last minute the farmer comes in and is like, no, you can't have him. And and he does this. It's a cartoon, so he punches him, and he goes, and the farmer punches Trumper, and Trumper goes like flying over the cannon, and he's like, "Ha! I'm gonna make it!" And where does he land? Manure. And there was one other moment minutes earlier where he had been hit by manure, and he was, he didn't want to. Let's just say no one likes manure. I mean, come on. And he really didn't like it being hit with manure, so when he actually landed in a whole pile of it, you know, and that is the end of him. There is no, no, it's not. There's one more moment, but it's a credit moment. And so let's talk about how the movie ends. It ends with them putting him back in the house, his memory's back. He was knocked out again, but you know, he wakes up the next morning with his memory still intact, and he's like, "Oh, what happened yesterday?" And he actually sees on TV there's this guy named Mr. X. That's what he was referred to as, Mr. X, and he had the shavers in both hands, and he was really popular during Act 2 as a barber. And he was like, "Oh," he was like, "Huh?" When he gets that back, he's like, "Oh yeah, I was a really popular barber." Oh well, and they sort of close because the TV's like, "What happened to Mr. X?" And that's actually a great, funny way to end this. So they go back to the 9 to 5. He gets out. It's a nicer day. As the dog gets up, he doesn't get hit by his dog door this time. He doesn't get hit by the door when the farmer comes out, he's like, "Ah!" And then the farmer comes out and doesn't hit him with the door, and he's like, "Ah, what do you know?" And when the farmer gets to the sheep pen and opens up the door, all the sheep are there waiting, ready to go for the 9 to 5. And he gets his chore list, and he looks at the chore list, and I knew that I was waiting for it. I was like, I honestly didn't know if they were going to continue with the chore list, just happy-go-lucky with the 9 to 5, or if they were going to do something different. And I'm glad they chose to go the other route, where the dog actually takes the chore list, crumples it up, and throws it over his shoulder. And the movie ends during the credits with showing the farmer, the sheep, like old times, just having fun. It also shows what happened to the rest of the characters, like the animals from the animal shelter, how they were paired up with actually good characters. The animal shelter where Trumper worked, the female from the female worker at the animal shelter is actually shown putting up a sign that goes from city animal containment to city animal adoption. And we see, as I said, all these different adoptions. We see the dog with bad teeth has a new owner with bad teeth that are identical to hers, which makes it funny. Same thing with this cat. Same thing with the fish. All these animals looking pretty good, and we do, as I said, there's one more moment in this that I have to get to, and we see Trumper dressed up as a chicken mascot. And I believe earlier in the film, I know that the chicken mascot was hit by someone, and I know that that Trumper made a lot of normal, everyday people mad in his chase after Shaun. So I bet that the chicken mascot was one, and he's actually shown as the new chicken mascot. And I just want to clarify that, this is a punishment in the movie, and it works. I just want to clarify, my movie being a mascot is not a punishment. It's the main character's choice. But it's the principle here of the fact that they're being forced to do it, because in this movie, Trumper's being forced to do it because he injured probably the mascot, But that's getting too much into detail in my movie, which I want to avoid. I believe that having talked about this movie, I wanted to make this a solid 30 minutes, but it looks like we might go a minute over. The fact that I talked about this so long, I actually thought this was going to be a shorter review. But I think that the fact that I talked about this so long and still managed to talk about it in great detail and do a better review than I did last night, which is probably why I actually really liked this movie. Like, I legitimately just talked about a third of the time that this movie ran. And by that I mean I talked a third of the time of the actual runtime of the movie. So let's go ahead and let's look at the O-rating system to see where this places. 9 is a gotta go. And 8 is an O, which is really good. A 9 is a gotta go, a great, and a whoa is an excellent. That's highly recommended. The Fast Act 1 is what keeps coming back to bother me. But I did love Act 3, and I did like Act 2, and it could have come together a little bit better. I have to be honest, looking at this, it could have definitely come to a little bit better. It did feel a little rushed, and I get it's a kids' movie, but, you know, I'm not just going to say go pretty good, and I could say, oh, really good, or I could say gotta go great. You know, it's not a 10, a whoa, excellent, I gotta say. It's an 8 or a 9. It's a really good or a great. You know what? It was funny. It was thoughtful. It may have been a little fast, but I think it deserves the 9. 9 was my first impression, and 9 was honestly what I expected it to get, based on all the good reviews I've seen. It's hard to get a 10 or an 11 with me. It is. But getting a 9 is still very good. It's still it's still a recommend, and it's, of the 3 levels, it's the highest recommend, other than highly recommended, which is 10 and 11. Will this camera pick it up? No, of course it won't. Okay. But anyway, that's my rating. That's my review. It's a 9. It's a great. And it is, on the O-rated system, a gotta go. Especially if you have kids, especially if you're a fan of Aardman, or if you liked Wallace. I liked Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I did. It had a great story. This is better. This is better than that, and it's certainly better than Chicken Run. And I would say that, well, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, some people may disagree with me. I would say Curse of the Were-Rabbit was actually better than Chicken Run as well. But this one definitely takes the take. But I'm the Cinematic Critic. I've got one more movie to see that starts right now, actually, at 8:50, and that's Fantastic Four. Oh, no!